Good evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler. Welcome to my latest Teleconnections discussion for 3 November 2023. We're starting off today's discussion with a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies for 3 November 2023. 500 millibars generally synonymous with 18,000 feet above the Earth's surface. And this is the level of the atmosphere where we tend to look for short waves. Shortwave troughs are indicated by the green coloring as well as the purple coloring. So green and purples, think shortwave troughs, which generally are the weather makers in the middle levels of the atmosphere. And they're associated with more unsettled weather conditions, shortwave troughs, specifically out ahead of the shortwave troughs. There's a lot of unsettled weather and cooler than normal temperatures. And then also on the 500 millibar height chart, we look for shortwave ridges, which are shown by the oranges, these light oranges, as well as these darker orangish red colors. And the stronger these upper level ridges get, the greater the downward vertical motion or sinking air motion in the atmosphere, and generally you get fair weather and milder than normal temperatures. So let's take a look and identify. We're going to focus, like I do every week, strictly on the northern hemisphere shortwave features, the troughs and the ridges. So let's go ahead and start things off here. First of all, we have anomalously, let me go ahead and get my drawing tool out before I get into things. We have anomalously high height centers on today's 500 millibar heights and height anomaly chart, up at basically over the Arctic area and the Eurasian sector of the world. And then also we have anomalous upper level ridge, which is positioned generally over Greenland and extending northward from Greenland into the Arctic area on the Atlantic side of the world. Additionally, we have upper level troughs in these green colors and purple colors. These upper level troughs are generally we have one upper level trough generally located over southeastern Siberia at this location. Then we have that huge upper level ridge kind of separating the upper level trough over southeastern Siberia, and another upper level trough across the central North Pacific Ocean. Additionally, we have troughing pretty significantly lower than normal height anomaly, a closed low associated with troughing generally over Hudson Bay in that vicinity or just north of Hudson Bay in Canada. Additionally, we have a very, very strong upper level low and trough generally to the west, or actually right over the western portions of Europe, specifically over the British Isles. And this has been quite a headline recently. Very, very strong winds associated with this very deep upper level low. We had a major storm system that really transversed across the North Atlantic into the British Isles, into parts of France. In fact, there were 45-foot waves off the western coast of France in association out ahead of this very intense weather system. Other features of interest in the northern hemisphere for today at this particular level in the atmosphere, we definitely can see that the storm track has shifted south across the North Pacific Ocean, and that has resulted in a flattening subtropical ridge. You see this flattened shape here around the Hawaiian Islands. That's associated with a weaker subtropical ridge. It's a flattened shape. We got that storm track moving across that North Pacific. Additionally, we also have the storm track a little bit further north across the North Atlantic, a little bit stronger of a subtropical ridge across the central North Atlantic Ocean at this time. Looking at the Madden-Julian oscillation or MJO phases overall and what we're seeing. Overall, for the Madden-Julian oscillation phases, you can see the various phases ranging from phase 1, where we have convection and upward vertical motion and precipitation, and the equatorial area there in the vicinity east of Africa, near Madagascar. Phases 2 and 3 is associated with convection, a rising vertical air motion in the Indian Ocean, and phases 4 and 5 is associated with rising vertical air motion in the maritime continent area, Australia. And then we have phases 6 and 7 in the equatorial western Pacific. Convection out there is favored when we have MJO in phases 6 and 7. And then phase 8. Phase 8 shows up at two locations. One location along the international date line at about 180 degrees west longitude. And another phase 8 location is generally just to the west of South Africa. Here is the latest satellite imagery for today, Friday, 3 November 2023. Starting with the Indian Ocean on the left, this is an infrared image, so we're basically measuring cloud temperatures using infrared imagery. And whenever you see the brighter white clouds, that's indicative of colder cloud tops. Whenever you see duller gray clouds like this one here, that's associated with warmer or lower cloud tops, warmer clouds in general. All right, so what we have going on in particular for the Indian Ocean today is we have scattered convection, which is located over parts of the Indian Ocean and over the South African continent itself. Another area of convection and some showers and storms are showing up just south of India, right in the vicinity of Sri Lanka. And then we also have some around Singapore, kind of over this portion of Asia. We have some showers and thunderstorms. On the right here, we're showing the Pacific Ocean, and generally we're seeing the convection firing up, where we have storm system type clouds. For example, at this location, we have clusters of thunderstorm band here, or cloud band in association with a mid-latitude cyclone, extratropical cyclone here over the north central Pacific. And then we have scattered convection and thunderstorm activity along the equatorial areas of the central and western Pacific. Here are the latest MJO temperature composites. Now, I did change these out since last Friday. We're now looking at temperature composites for November, December, and January. Now that we have flipped the calendar officially over to November, we have generally blue coloring on these composites indicates below normal temperatures. You see orange color that indicates above normal temperatures. So in general, in the months of November, December, January, we are now seeing phases 8 and phases 1 generally associated with below normal temperatures for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. And then as we get into phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, or these areas of the MJO phase diagram on the right, where we have convection over the Indian Ocean, as well as parts of the maritime continent in Australia, those are associated with milder phases or milder temperatures for the mid-Atlantic. All right, so let's take a look at the forecast here on the right. Let's take a look at the GFS Ensemble Forecasting System, V12, GEFS. Generally what we're showing you is we were last week situated in week phase 1, and now this red line kind of in the numbers show the day of the month. So now on the 3rd of November, we are now into the null phase. We've officially entered the null phase according to Jeff's V12. And then you kind of see this 5 number, that's 5th of November, 7 is 7 November, 9 is 9 November. So you see this red line, how it just kind of rotates around through the null phase, the small inner circle. And then over time, we expect, the latest forecast is for the Jeff's V12 to show the MJO rotating weekly back into phase 8. And this runs all the way to the 17th of November, about 2 weeks out. Other MJO modeling forecasts, CFS V2 on the far left, showing very similar. We're getting into more of a null phase over time as we move in through the first half of November, and then potentially rotating back out around this goes all the way out, the CFS V2 extended to the 2nd of December. Potentially rotating back out into week phase 8 and phase 1 by early December. The ECMWF, this model here in the center, showing, again, null phase, this red line here for the 3rd of November, right in the center of the diagram, indicating a null phase or non-impactful stage from the MJO on U.S. weather. But over time, it's expected that the MJO may rotate back to week phase 8, phase 1 territory. And then the Bureau of Meteorology model, BOM extended. This was released on the 1st of November, so it's a couple days older. I don't have the latest one as of today just yet. Just wanted to kind of show you the differences in the models. In general, what we're looking at is also BOM is indicating a MJO in the null phase, center of the diagram here. And then that MJO rotates into phase 7 and phase 8 as we go through the early to middle parts of November. So overall, models are generally good agreement for MJO in the null, non-impactful phase right now for U.S. weather, so not really seeing much impact from MJO through the middle part of November. Now, this BOM model on the far right is the exception to the rule. It's forecasting MJO to be a little bit more amplified, greater magnitude by the time we get to 9, 11, and 13 November in phase 7. where we have convection favored in the Western Pacific, according to Baum, and then rotating into phase 8 back to the Western Hemisphere in Africa. One thing to note of the MJO forecast, look at where each of these models is showing the focus of the MJO phases in 8 and 1 primarily. Looking at the latest El Nino update, this is the latest CDAS sea surface temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius. This is from 00Z, 3 November 2023, a distinct plume of above normal water stretching from the west coast of South America all the way westward to portions of the equatorial central Pacific. So this is associated, this is that signature of El Nino. And then we also have some above normal waters, generally southwest of California and the north central Pacific as well. You see these two areas off the west coast of the United States. And there's actually a little bit of above normal water temperatures all the way up off of the Washington state coastline in Oregon. We do have a little patch of below normal waters there into the Gulf of Alaska, but it's not very large, it's not very distinct, or that cooler anomaly is not very strong. We also have above normal waters generally to the northeast of Japan, extending eastward from Japan to south of the Kamchatka Peninsula. We have above normal waters. And then one other area that really stands out is Eastern Indian Ocean. This deep blue color indicates well below normal water temperatures in association with a positive Indian Ocean dipole, where the Eastern Indian Ocean is below normal for water and the Western Indian Ocean is above normal. And then one more area I wanted to point out is just south of Greenland, southwest of Greenland really, we still see above normal waters occurring there, and that's in association with a positive Atlantic multidecadal oscillation, or positive AMO. Looking at the latest CDAS Nino 3.4 index as of today at 06 Zulu, showing the latest value of the sea surface temperature anomalies. It's 1.40 degrees Celsius above normal in Nino 3.4 region, according to CDAS. That's what the water temperatures are right now. And really, I've been watching this closely. So there was a westerly wind burst, and with that situation, that allowed some warming of the waters in the Nino 3.4 region. Bottom line is it leveled off at about 1.44 degrees Celsius above normal, and now it's kind of slightly dropped again down to 1.40 Celsius above normal in that Nino 3.4 region for the waters. So let's keep an eye on this trend over time. Anything greater than 1.5 C, anything greater than 1.5 degrees Celsius above normal water temperatures in this Nino 3.4 box is generally associated with a strong El Nino. Right now, being that we're at 1.4 C above normal water temperatures in Nino 3.4, we have a moderate El Nino. And again, I like to show this to show you the latitude 5 degrees north to 5 degrees south and the longitude box of Nino 3.4 region from 120 west right here, this longitude line, extending west to 170 west right there. Latest El Nino forecast really hasn't changed from last week. I don't have any new updates on this as of yet for November from IRI, International Research Institute, or from NOAA, Climate Prediction Center just yet. Bottom line is there's a 95% chance of El Nino conditions this upcoming winter, 95 actually to 100% chance now. I have to update that. But overall, we are definitely going to be facing El Nino conditions this winter season. The intensity of it, look at the modeling here on the right. I showed this last week, the same exact graphic. The intensity of El Nino is going to be dependent on which models you go with. For example, the maroon line here, the higher values up to 2 degrees Celsius above normal as we head towards winter, and this is December time period. That's a dynamical average, and it's much greater than the statistical averages, this green solid line. So there is a difference between these two. As far as where these water temperatures peak out at in Nino 3.4 region. What I'm going with, and what I feel really is going to happen, is we could go as generally peaking out for El Nino for those 3.4 region for the water temps. I'm thinking 1.6 to 1.8 degrees Celsius as a peak. That 1.8 would be the top of the line peak for those water temperatures in Nino 3.4 region. So I'm not seeing a 2 degrees Celsius possibility here. At least that's not the way it looks right now for super El Nino status. But yeah, it's still a strong El Nino nonetheless. Looking at the latest quasi-biennial oscillation or QBO update. Now, this was taken from a weather balloon launch, a radio sound observation from Singapore. Looking at zonal winds in meters per second. This was launched yesterday morning at 12 Zulu on November 2nd, 2023. One thing you notice here, we are in a negative easterly phase. See this blue line here, how it's to the left of this right here, this vertical bar. This is indicative of the various pressure levels in the atmosphere, all the way up to 10 millibars at the top and down to 90 millibars here at the bottom. But in general, look at what's happening here, okay? We're seeing this blue line primarily to the left of this vertical line, indicating a negative easterly phase of the QBO. So that trend continues, and we do expect this negative easterly phase, the QBO, to persist for the upcoming winter. And by the way, why is that important? Because it favors a weakened stratospheric polar vortex. Next slide here. All right, here is some of the Teleconnections latest forecasts. Now, this is the AO, Arctic Oscillation. Generally showing you that a negative AO is associated with much colder Arctic air spilling out of the Arctic into the United States, specifically the Midwest to the East Coast. With a positive AO, we get more of a west to east jet stream. You get fast-moving systems that kind of skirt across the northern U.S., fairly mild conditions, Pacific air from coast to coast with a positive AO. So that's really why we pay attention to it. You know, a negative AO is associated with a weakening polar vortex in the stratosphere, and a positive AO is associated with a stronger polar vortex in the stratosphere. Latest forecast. Now, this is European EPS AO 50 perturb members showing a negative phase of the AO through the 6th of November. And this very well could be that reflection from the stretched out polar vortex in the stratosphere at the end of October. So we had a slightly weak negative AO, and we're expecting that to continue through about the 6th of November. Then it's going to transition near neutral conditions. You see a little bit of a dip here again. This model is indicating it between the 9th and the 11th of November, but it's very short-lived. And then it kind of goes up back to neutral conditions through 18 November. European EPS, this is a 50 perturb member, 46-day outlook all the way out to 18 December, showing the negative phase, the AO currently through the 6th of November. Then we kind of play this game where we're kind of like either slightly positive to neutral, a little dip here, slightly negative. And so in general, I'm calling this slightly positive to neutral from the 7th of November right to the 18th of December. For the NOAA JEPS V12 forecast for AO, negative through 5 November on this particular model, then pretty much, if you average all these little dips and drops off, you average it out, it's close to the zero line. So neutral conditions through from 6 November to 19 November for the AO. Looking at the North Atlantic Oscillation forecast now, NAO, positive phase NAO, a more west to east jet stream. This jet stream stronger as it blows across the Atlantic Ocean, the North Atlantic. We get milder conditions with more west to east zonal flow across the mid-Atlantic and southeastern U.S. with a positive NAO. All the cold air remains up well to the north. And then with a negative NAO phase, we get this black line indicates the jet stream configuration, more of a dip or a trough and the troughing in the jet stream. And with a negative NAO phase, specifically in winter, you get more of a cold and snowy situation along mid-Atlantic to New England, and this huge upper level ridge upstream of that. And that does prevent these coastal storms from really escaping and heading out to sea so readily. Let's look at the forecast now. European EPS NAO 50 perturb member forecast showing slightly negative NAO through 5 November, just a couple days out. By Sunday, we're expecting it to transition to neutral conditions for a bit through about the 9th of November, then drop back negative for the NAO. Neutral to slightly negative overall, though, from the 6th, basically the 18th of November, according to this model for NAO. European EPS, 50 perturb members, 46-day outlook out to 18 December, showing a slightly negative phase of the NAO, kind of climbing up there, the slightly positive side, back to slightly negative, back to slightly positive, back to slightly positive. You're getting the hint here, aren't you? Slightly positive to near neutral conditions generally rule the period from 6 November to 18 December. And then the NOAA JEPS V12 NAO 30 perturb member forecast showing a slightly negative NAO through 5 November, and then slightly positive for a bit to neutral throughout the period to 19 November. Now let's take a look at the latest Pacific North American PNA forecast. Big things about the P&A that you really want to take away. Graphic here in the bottom left showing a positive P&A situation where we get upper level ridging across western North America, western Canada, all the way up to Alaska in some cases. And that's where we have an upper level ridge in this case over the western portions of North America, dry and very mild temperatures there. And downstream of that, you get a trough, much colder temperatures and stormier conditions across the eastern U.S. with a positive P&A. With a negative P&A, on the other hand, we flip-flop this pattern, and now we've got troughing and below normal temperatures and unsettled, more stormy conditions across the western U.S. And downstream from that, with a negative P&A, you get a ridge configuration into the southeast and mid-Atlantic and drier and warmer than normal conditions. Let's take a look at the forecast. The European EPS P&A 50 perturbed members showing a positive phase of this P&A initially through 6 November. Then it drops off a little bit, slightly negative to near neutral, maybe another dip to negative, slightly negative between 13 and 16 November, back to neutral, but in general, negative, on the slightly negative side of things to near neutral from 7 to 18 November. European EPS P&A 50 perturbed members, now we're showing you the 46-day forecast. Positive P&A right now through 6 November, and then slightly positive again to near neutral throughout the period to 18 December. And then NOAA Jeffs V12 P&A 30 perturbed members showing a positive phase of the P&A initially through 6 November, then back slightly positive to near neutral from 7 to 19 November. And then finally, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation EPO forecast. Here are the big things to take away about the EPO phases. When you have a negative EPO, you generally have a nice sprawling upper level ridge or higher height center in the Gulf of Alaska over a closed upper level low, generally to the east of Hawaii. And when you have this huge upper level ridge, what it does is it pumps up the heights into Canada, or western Canada into Alaska, and then you get a major dip in the jet stream, and that allows Arctic highs and much colder air to overspread the Midwest to the East Coast with a negative EPO. When you get a positive EPO, we have a different scenario. We have a stronger Aleutian low pressure system in the Gulf of Alaska over these upper level ridges, generally straddling the 20-degree north latitude line right around Hawaii and westward. What this does for the United States weather is we get a major influx of milder Pacific air, maritime polar, but it's very much modified as it makes its trek over the Rocky Mountains, descends down the lee side of those mountains, and warms up. And so you have a very mild pattern from the Rockies to the East Coast with a positive EPO. All the cold air remains bottled up to the north over the Arctic in this case. Let's take a look at the forecast. European EPS, EPO 50 perturbed members showing a slightly negative trend at EPO through 5 November, and then a transition to a positive phase EPO, then another positive phase, then more neutral conditions right on through the 18th of November. Looking at the European EPS, EPO 50 perturbed member forecast, 46-day outlook to 18 December, a negative EPO through 5 November, and then we see a nice little climb to the positive side from 6 to the 16th of November, followed by a drop to negative again, according to the European EPS 50 perturbed member 46-day forecast. And then finally, the NOAA Jeffs V12 EPO 30 perturbed members showing a slightly negative phase of this EPO through the 4th of November, then positive to near neutral conditions from 5 to 19 November. Let's take a look at the latest update on the polar vortex. We will take a look at the GFS polar vortex update. We will look at the European, and we also will take a look at the GFS Ensemble forecasting system, Jeffs. So today on Friday, the 3rd of November 2023, we see generally below normal stratospheric temperatures across portions of Alaska, down into western North America, specifically western Canada. And over time, now this graphic here on the far right is for 2 weeks later from today's date. So now we're looking at Friday morning, the 17th of November on the right. You see this peach coloring here, indicative of warming or warmer than normal stratospheric temperatures. You see another area over on the Siberian side. That is a little bit different from this one, isn't it? From the graphic here on the left from today, see it's mostly blue coloring and below normal stratospheric temperatures over Siberia. But over the next 2 weeks, look what happens. The temperatures actually warm a little bit. Not a major sudden stratospheric warming, but they do warm nonetheless. So we do expect, some warming potentially beginning after the 17th of November. The European polar vortex, the European model polar vortex update, similar conditions here. Today, we see below normal stratospheric temperatures across Western Canada. We see this peach color indicating slightly above normal stratospheric temperatures over in the stratosphere over New England, over Eastern Canada. We're working our way right back around to northern Siberia. And then basically, the European model doesn't go out 2 weeks, so I just kind of ended it at the 2:40 hour, kind of just showing you any changes that could be occurring now. You notice this coloring here. This is today again. This is Friday, 3 November on the left. But look at this on the right. 13 November, we're seeing a deeper or darker hue of oranges here, south of Greenland on the North Atlantic sector side. And so that's indicative of potential warming in the stratosphere in that particular location by the 13th of November. And then finally, the GFS Ensemble Forecasting System, Jeff's Polar Vortex Update. Again, very similar. I won't beat up a dead horse here. Very similar to the previous two slides I showed you with where the below normal stratospheric temperatures are located. And then over time, I did go out to the 15th of November here on the right for the forecast from Jeff's, showing a similar situation. Now look at this area here. Again, it's below normal across Siberia, the stratospheric temperatures initially slightly below normal based on climatology. And then by the time we get to the 15th of November, the Jeff's is showing this. So there is warming potential in the stratosphere, some slight warming occurring beginning after 17 November. Let's take a look at the zonal mean zonal winds now, as well as the stratospheric temperatures, courtesy of ZD Lawrence. All right, so we're looking at the first graphic here on the left. We're looking at the zonal mean zonal winds at 60 degrees north latitude and at an elevation or altitude at 10 hectopascals, 10 millibars. And so this is our vertical line, this white dashed line today. This is where we're at in today's date, generally showing an increasing trend, an increase in the wind speeds. See, these are the wind speeds over here on the left. Zonal winds here are in meters per second. And you notice it ranges from 15 to 45 here on this y-axis, on this vertical axis here. So you see an upward trend, a positive slope to the overall expected wind strength or wind speeds. So whenever you see strengthening or stronger winds for the zonal mean zonal winds at this latitude, at this elevation or altitude, that's generally indicative of a strengthening polar vortex by the 10th of November. Now you'll notice some of these models, and by the way, the models are coded based on color. You'll see some of these lines here, these color lines, right? See how they start to dip a little bit after the 15th of November? That's indicative of a weakening of the stratospheric polar vortex again, a deceleration of those zonal mean zonal wind speeds. Over here on the right, where I'm showing you these are the average temperatures now in the stratosphere at 10 hectopascals between 60 and 90 degrees north latitude. So look at the modeling here. It's generally showing a cooling trend, this slope going downward like this. Right through the 10th of November, and then it kind of levels off. One of the models here, the CMC Ensemble average, actually this blue line actually starts curving back up, potentially indicating a warming situation after the 10th of November. We'll have to watch the trends on this as we go throughout the period. Now, anytime it's a positive wind velocity value here, or wind speed value rather, generally indicates that the winds remain westerly throughout the period in the stratosphere. If these lines were to dip below the zero line into negative wind speeds, that would be indicative of a wind reversal from west to east in the stratosphere and a significant sudden stratospheric warming. Let's take a look at the latest now, the 500 millibar geopotential height and anomaly forecast. This is the European Ensemble Prediction System, EPS. Starting with today, this is Friday, 3 November 2023, 500 millibar chart, showing general above normal heights across the western U.S. We have a deep hue of purple here, generally in the vicinity of Hudson Bay, Canada, a very deep closed low. We still do have some anomalous ridging very far north up into the Arctic area. We see another piece of energy, an upper level low, generally to the east of the main upper low over Hudson Bay, generally east of that. And so generally we have westerly flow now. We have a little bit of moderating effects. We have this deep trough kind of situated from Halloween through about yesterday time frame, the 2nd of November, so it brought much colder temperatures to the east. In fact, we saw some record low temperatures from the southeast to the mid-Atlantic recently. But now that trough is lifted out, we're starting to see more of a west-east parallel winds to these height contours, these black lines here, solid black lines. And so we do expect some moderation in temperatures. Here is the forecast for Monday, the 6th of November, according to EPS. Now we got a trough just approaching the Pacific Northwest coast. We have more of the normal heights from Southern California right to Dixie Alley and up towards the Midwest. We do have a little bit of weak troughing off the southeastern coast this is actually Monday. Yeah, this is Monday 0Z, so this is Sunday evening. There'll be a weak area of low pressure forming off the southeast coast, but then heads out to sea. So not really much of an impact along the eastern seaboard with this particular troughing feature, the shortwave trough. We still see that deep close low, but it does seem like it shifted a little bit further east by Monday, and it's also less intense. Bottom left showing the forecast for Thursday, the 9th of November, 2023, showing a trough, positively tilted trough, generally over the eastern North Pacific. We do see upper level ridging reestablishing itself across the western portions of North America, specifically from Seattle northward into western Canada. Downstream of that troughing, downstream of the ridging, we do have a little bit of troughing across the upper plains and upper Midwest, positively tilted trough, generally extending from North Dakota through Arizona and Nevada. And then we have higher than normal heights, generally over the southeastern U.S., slightly above normal heights. We do see troughing generally in the position of where you'd see a 50-50 low, more of a negatively tilted trough at that location. And then finally, the forecast for 12 November on the bottom right, showing some higher than normal heights across central Canada. And we have some troughing now that has moved into shortwave trough into Southern California, higher than normal heights along the Gulf Coast. And now this feature is really interesting to watch right here, the elongated green color here from the North Atlantic extending southwestward towards Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire area. This is really interesting. I've been watching the model runs, and it's possible that this trough could actually retrogress from the North Atlantic backwards into and really get fairly intense and dig pretty deep, New England to the Mid-Atlantic, just beyond the 12th of November. So this is something we'll have to watch over time to see if that happens. Here's the Jeffs V12, latest updated 500 millibar heights and anomaly forecast. This is today again here at upper left, showing that deep closed low over Hudson Bay. That's a major feature right now in the North American circulation. We have higher than normal heights across the western U.S. Over on the far right, here's the forecast, the Jeffs forecast for 6 November, Monday. We see troughing, a nice little trough approaching the Pacific Northwest coast. We also see that deep trough that used to be over Hudson Bay shift slightly to the east. And we do have higher than normal heights from Southern California, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, up to Illinois, Iowa, and southern Wisconsin. More of a zonal flow or west-to-east zonal jet stream configuration in this case. There's that troughing feature, again, that weak troughing there off the southeastern U.S. coast late Sunday night, really, in association with that weak area of low pressure that forms and then heads out to sea. Minimal impact to the East Coast with that feature. Bottom left is showing the forecast, the Jeffs forecast for 9 November, next Thursday, showing general troughing and below normal heights in the blue coloring from Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, extending westward towards the Rockies, Colorado, Utah, Nevada. And we also have a little bit more of a ridging feature off the southeast coast by next Thursday, which that would really elevate the temperatures if this occurs. In fact, the European ensemble has more of a flatter look to this ridge, whereas the Jeffs has a little bit more pronounced ridging. So if the Jeffs is correct, you're going to be seeing 70s extending up into the mid-Atlantic for high temperatures, the middle, potentially even upper 70s in the Carolinas by next Thursday. We do see troughing, a negatively tilted trough, generally in that location of the Canadian Maritimes by next Thursday. And finally, on the bottom right is the forecast for Sunday, 12 November. We have a nice closed upper level low in the vicinity of Kodiak, Alaska, extending to the southwest in a positively tilted manner. We also see a shortwave trough across Nevada and Southern California. We have a little bit of weak ridging across the central U.S., and then we have this feature again that's showing up on the Jeffs as well. So both ensemble runs are showing it. European, see the elongation of this green coloring, indicative of a potential retrogressing or retrograding trough. And then it's also matching up quite well with the positioning and the intensity with the Jeffs V12. So this could really cool things down across New England and down to the Mid-Atlantic next weekend. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Here are my final thoughts in tonight's video. A recap of everything we covered. The MJO is in null phase right now, and it's going to last through about 10 November. Then there's potential for rotation in MJO phase 8. Now the null phase, whenever the MJO is in null phase, it favors no significant weather impacts to U.S. weather. Phase 8, on the other hand, for this time period, favors colder temperatures across the eastern U.S. Moderate El Nino conditions continue across the equatorial eastern and central Pacific. Right now we're sitting, according to CDAS data, at 1.4 degrees Celsius above normal water temps in Nino 3.4 region. This generally, any kind of El Nino type condition favors troughing and cooler temps across the southeastern U.S., more of a suppressed southern storm track. Sea surface temperature anomalies outside of equatorial Pacific areas. We're seeing warmer than normal water across the northwestern Pacific, southwest of California, and also across the North Atlantic, southwest of Greenland, as I mentioned, in association with a positive AMO. We're seeing cooler than normal waters located over the eastern Indian Ocean. That's associated with that strongly positive Indian Ocean dipole, IOD, and also we're seeing cooler than normal waters southeast of Hawaii. Now, models are indicating a negative Arctic oscillation AO phase through the 6th of November, but that is fairly short-lived. We're then going to transition to more of a neutral phase AO. Negative phase of the AO favors cold temps across the eastern U.S. beneath higher pressure or higher heights in the north. And neutral phase of the AO favors near average temps in a more zonal west to east jet stream configuration. Models are indicating a slightly negative to neutral NAO, North Atlantic oscillation, through 19 November. And the EPS 46-day forecast going out through 18 December indicates neutral to slightly positive NAO phase. Now, negative NAO phase favors cold temps across the eastern U.S. We get blocking upstream, get this blocking ridge across the northwest Atlantic. And the neutral phase favors near average temps in general across the eastern U.S. and a lack of blocking. If we were to get the positive phase of the NAO, that would favor warmer temperature across the eastern U.S. as I lose a mouse. Okay, I'll keep moving on. I've done this before. All right, models are indicating a positive PNA through 6 November. Neutral conditions are favored from 7 November right through the middle of December. And a neutral phase is generally indicative of near average temps across the eastern U.S. Below normal heights and troughing and colder temps over the eastern U.S. is usually what you get with a positive PNA. Models are indicating a slightly negative EPO through 5 November. Then neutral conditions with occasionally slightly positive, kind of ranging slightly positive to slightly negative through middle December. A negative EPO favors upper level ridge over the Gulf of Alaska and the Northeast Pacific with downstream trough and a colder temps from the northern plains to east coast. Now, positive EPO, on the other hand, would favor the opposite effect. Models are indicating a strengthening stratospheric polar vortex right on through the 10th of November. We have increasing zonal mean zonal winds and cooling temperatures in the stratosphere. But then there's indications that we could see some potential weakening as the zonal mean zonal winds decrease or slow down with slightly warming temperatures in the stratosphere. A weakening vortex indicates colder temperatures across the eastern U.S. in early November, whereas a strengthening vortex indicates warmer temps across the eastern U.S. And then finally, my last slide, an overall assessment. So in general, everything we took a look at in the video, the teleconnections in general, the AO, the NAO, the PNA, and the null MJO phase are all mainly in a neutral state. Very non-impactful state over the next 7 to 10 days. So based on these teleconnections in today's presentation, not really expecting, there's nothing eye-popping about these, right? We don't see strongly positive or strongly negative phases of really any of these. We do not see a great magnitude or stronger magnitude of MJO phases, any of them. So what am I expecting? I'm expecting near average temperatures for the mid-Atlantic with mostly flat, zonal, west to east upper level winds. All right, so what does that mean for us, okay? When I say average temperatures, now, there's going to be a period where we might see slightly above normal temperatures followed by slightly below normal temperatures. But this type of teleconnection setup does not really favor significant changes above or below normal in the temperature profile for the mid-Atlantic over the next 7 to 10 days. We do see El Nino. It's remaining in place. It's not going away. This is going to definitely be a factor for the upcoming winter. We're still waiting for the subtropical jet stream and that southern storm track to really kick in. We're really still waiting for that indicator of stronger winds at the jet stream level there, 300 to 200 millibars. Other things that really I wanted to point out and get after is there's a lack of high latitude blocking across the North Atlantic and North Pacific right now. If we go back to these ensemble graphs, we do have some strong upper level ridging up across the far, far north over the Arctic. We do have a little bit of a building ridge by Monday here, just into the Bering Sea, generally to the south of the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. But a little bit of a building ridge as well here, but really no significantly building ridges like we saw in the summer or starting off in the early fall. The same thing's true here for the Jeffs V12. We're not seeing any crazy huge upper level ridging into Greenland associated with a negative NAO over the forecast period. We do have a positive PNA temporarily popping up these heights here, but it's very brief. Things become progressive as things kind of move fairly quickly in this highly zonal flow from west to east across the United States. So overall, lack of high latitude blocking. We'll see if that changes over the next week. Now, there are potential changes that I'm watching closely after the middle part of November. This includes a transition to potentially MJO Phase 8. That's a colder signal for the Mid-Atlantic, as well as a weakening stratospheric polar vortex. And there is a lagged colder signal for the Mid-Atlantic with that. So let's keep a close eye on the MJO and the stratospheric polar vortex. Somebody just shared something earlier this evening showing the latest European model forecast for the stratospheric temperature profile. Earlier in the week, it was looking like European was indicating a very strong sudden stratospheric warming event in late November, early December, but now it's sort of backed off. And of course, then we get the comments, oh, it's going to be a torch winter. Uh-oh. Let's not overreact on anything right now because it's so early. We haven't even hit meteorological winter yet, and that's not until 1 December. So, we can look at all these indicators, and all we can do is assess to the best of our ability what these indicators are telling us. But just keep in mind that these teleconnections are constantly in a state of change. The planetary waves and the overall synoptic patterns change rather abruptly. So, I can be briefing you the EPO next week, for example, and it may be completely different than what I'm showing you right now. So just keep that in mind. The teleconnections are going to change. They're either going to change more strongly positive or strongly negative. If you want a really nice winter, then you really want certain teleconnections to go negative, like the NAO and AO. You do not want a strongly positive NAO and strongly positive AO. That's going to be indicative of a strong stratospheric polar vortex, and you're going just to have a west to east jet stream, mild temperatures in the winter. So we definitely don't want that if you want winter weather. But that's all I've got for now. By the way, I've got another great presentation that I put together. That is memorable East Coast snowstorms. And so I'm going to kind of go into the synoptics on that video of the favorable conditions for East Coast snowstorms. And then I'm going to go into past snowstorms themselves and kind of break down what happened with select snowstorms that were fairly significant to the East Coast in the past. So I do have that video ready to go. Hopefully I'll get that cut here in the coming days. But that's all I got for now for Teleconnections Discussion. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, and please feel free to hit me up with questions or comments in the video. I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. All right, that's all I got for now. Until next time, take care and God bless everyone.